Terrence Bates here with your Real America's Voice News Break. We appreciate you being along for the ride. We're keeping an eye on the White House, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to arrive at any moment now. You're seeing a couple of views of the south and north side of the White House. A color guard is in place right now, and we're expecting that Zelensky will arrive here quite literally at any moment. A number of European leaders who are part of his entourage, if you will, who will be joining him for today's negotiations over some sort of peace deal with Russia, are already at the White House, presumably meeting with President Trump. Many of them arrived within the last hour. Volodymyr Zelensky expected to arrive, as I said, here within the next couple of minutes or so. Hopefully we'll still be on the air when he does arrive so we can show you his arrival and his greeting from President Trump. All of this, of course, coming on the heels of President Trump meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday in Alaska. A number of concessions were made during that meeting on Friday that led to today's meeting. Guys, if we can keep these shots up full so that our viewers can see them, please. Let's keep the shots up full. Thank you. Again, President Trump having met with Vladimir Putin on Friday in Alaska, and the Trump administration says that a number of concessions were made during those meetings, which led to today. Now, to be clear, the president saying that he doesn't expect excuse me, a peace deal to come today. But this is a big first step towards that peace deal. A number of negotiations will be had today, specifically as it relates to Ukraine ceding some of its land, specifically the Donbas region. That region, of course, is currently occupied by the Russians, and part of the negotiations are going to be to see if Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will give up that land, will cede that land, which again is currently being held by the Russians. The administration also saying that it is going to be responsible or offer some security guarantees for Ukraine, which would potentially, keep Russia from continuing its push into Ukraine and continuing its offensive. Here's what some of the Trump administration officials had to say on those two fronts over the weekend.
That the United States is potentially prepared to be able to give Article 5 security guarantees, but not from NATO, directly from the United States and other European countries. That is big. I mean, really big.
Our goal here is to have a peace agreement to end this war, okay? And obviously we felt, and I agreed, that there was enough progress, not a lot of progress, but enough progress made in those talks to allow us to move to the next phase. If not, we wouldn't be having Zelensky flying all the way over here. We wouldn't be having all the Europeans coming all the way over here. Now, understand and take with a grain of salt, I'm not saying we're on the verge of a peace deal, but I am saying that we saw movement, enough movement to justify a follow-up meeting with Zelensky and the Europeans, enough movement for us to dedicate even more time to this. You talk about the sanctions. Look, at the end of the day, if peace is not going to be possible here, and this is just going to continue on as a war, people will continue to die by the thousands. The president has that option to then come in and impose new sanctions.
So again, just to clarify, we are waiting for Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, to arrive at the White House to be greeted by President Trump and then go into negotiations with the president. Also party to these meetings will be several European leaders. The president of Germany, the prime minister of Italy is said to be on hand, the prime minister of Great Britain, also French President Emmanuel Macron. A number of major NATO leaders are on site at the White House to be part of these negotiations, as many of those European leaders are also stakeholders in a potential peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. That peace deal very likely won't be reached today, but as you just heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, today's discussions could set the stage for a peace deal, and there's also reporting that if today's discussions go well, there could be another trilateral meeting. That would be a meeting that would include Ukrainian President Zelensky as well as Russian President Putin and President Trump. If today's meeting goes well, there could be a trilateral meeting between those three parties as soon as late this week or potentially early next week. So a lot at stake here at the White House as President Trump awaits the arrival of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We, of course, will have live coverage for you here on Real America's Voice as President Zelensky arrives here at the White House. In the meantime, let's get you back to your regularly scheduled program.